Sent you a new correction ID. Good morning. I've, yes, please. I don't know. It was on the group. Just please click on that. It's already there. It's already on the group. I don't remember like this. I've just sent it to you on WhatsApp. Thank you. Yes, Dimples. Yeah, so 121 is the password. I've sent that also. Yeah, 121 is the password, Dimples. 121 is the password. Just just click on the link otherwise. Yes, please. Thank you. So Dimples is not being able to log in. I don't know what's the reason. So shall we continue reading and we'll explain, we'll understand on our own. Is that okay? If yes, let's go for it.
Yes, it should be fine, I think, Prachi.
All right, so let's start. Sadhana Chatushyam, Chapter 8 of the Introduction to Vedanta. The text Tattva Bodha first talks about the qualifications required for a student of the scriptures, especially of Jnana Yoga. These qualifications are listed as a group called Sadhana Chatushyam, the fourfold qualification. The person who has this fourfold qualification is called an adhikari, an eligible student. Now, what is this fourfold qualification? Vivek, discrimination; Vairagyam, dispassion; Shataka, Sampati, sixfold Shataka, Sampati, sixfold discipline or discipline in general. Mumukshvatvam, desire for freedom. Remember, all begin with D: discrimination, dispassion, discipline, desire. These four Ds put together is called fourfold qualification, and the one who has these four qualities is called a qualified student or adhikari. Viveka is recognition of the superiority of Shreyas and the risks involved in prayers. So Viveka is discrimination, and we are recognizing that it is a superior Shreyas. The discrimination between Shreyas and prayers is Vivek. Unpredictably, risks, problems, potential sorrows are associated with prayers. Shreyas gives peace and happiness. Prayers, Shreyo Viveka. Discrimination between prayers and Shreyas helps me choose the right path of Shreyas. How do we get this discrimination? Only by going through the experiences of the life without being mechanical will help us get this. Intelligent experiments of life will make me mature and help me learn lessons. This intelligent living in the life of Karma Yogi, somebody has said that a life is a university from which I can learn a lot. Our schools and colleges teach us how to read and write without teaching us what to read or write. What is my goal and how I can attain it is not made very clear. The scriptures say that a person should examine every experience he goes through. He should ask whether his problem is because of the external world or whether it is because of his dependence on the external world. An external condition can cause a problem only when I depend on it. External world by itself can never be a cause of a problem. Therefore, the problem is with myself. To realize this, it may take a lot of time for some people, many years for some people, for some, even a few janmas may be required. Take your own time, but one day you should be clear about the priorities of life and know the superiorities of Shreyas. So I hope we are clear about this, that it's all about discrimination. We know what we can learn in schools, colleges, and the scriptures are very clearly saying, what is my goal? How do I attain it is not clear. So in our university, in our college, in our life, we are learning what we are experiencing, we are going through something, we're finding, we're doing introspection. It takes some time for some people, many time for many people. And for some, it just comes very automatically. And for some people, it takes lives because you're repeating some pattern and you have to take many janmas to understand that what is the purpose of our life, our soul. Now let's talk about Vairagyam, dispassion. Vivek leads to Vairagyam or dispassion with regard to prayers. After understanding that prayers is only dependence, which is not healthy for me, I decide not to dedicate my life for the pursuit of prayers. At least it does not remain as top priority. We cannot totally drop earning money, nor can we totally drop our recreations. We need them for survival and health. But that cannot be the primary goal of my life. It is like a pickle for a meal, helping me to eat the main dish. Earlier, prayers was my main dish. Now it has been replaced by Shreyas. While pursuing that, I make use of other things merely as support. They remain secondary. They're not given up. Such a healthy attitude towards prayers as a secondary thing in life has something merely like a stepping stone as an intermediary stage is called virag or vairagyam. Now, vairag does not mean hating prayers. Prayers is to be used as a means and not as an end in itself. It is said that money is a good servant but a bad master. Similarly, prayers is a wonderful means, but it is grievous. And if you take it as sadhyam, take it as a sadhyam, it becomes an end. Prayers as sadhanam is healthy. As sadhyam it is a bondage. Sadhanam is a means while sadhyam is the end. The growing out of dharma, artha and kama is vairagya. So it's very simple. अगर हम अपने efforts को आगे बढ़ा रहे हैं, to learn, to meditate, to do something wonderful in life is amazing. But अगर हम उसको rule करने दे रहे हैं अपने ऊपर, then it's an end for us. Just the way अगर money सर पे चढ़ के बोलेगा, तो life खत्म हो जाती है. So we need to do our कर्म. We need to have dispassion also in life कि बहुत ज़्यादा attachment नहीं हो जाए, so that we can dedicate our life for the purpose of prioritize what is important for us. Obviously priority में वैराग में हम ये तो नहीं कि अपनी worldly माया से छोड़ देंगे, अपनी responsibility को छोड़ देंगे. We will continue that, लेकिन उसको हम secondary बनाएंगे. The first healthy attitude we will have is for stepping towards our life, what we want to generate and make our life out to be. Now let's talk about muksatvam, desire for freedom. This is also a consequence of vivek. When I discern the fact that shreyas, which is moksha, is superior to prayers, which is a combination of dharma, arth and kam, I choose shreyas as my primary goal. Suppose a child is holding a 5 rupee note. You ask the child if it would take a 100 rupee note. The child will answer that it does not want the 100 rupee note and it will hold onto the 5 rupee note. The child does not know the difference between a 5 rupee note and a 100 rupee note. But once the child grows up, it gets the most important vivek in life, that this is a 5 rupee note and this is a 100 rupee note. And the 100 rupee note is much more valuable. Now, if you ask the child if he wants a 100 rupee note, he will immediately drop the 5 rupee note and ask for the 100 rupee note. Dropping the dispassionate hold on prayers is called vairagyam. Stretching ourselves to reach shreyas is mumukshvatam. Both are possible because of vivek. Vivek leads to vairagyam and mumukshvatam. Thus, intelligent living, that is, a life of karma yoga alone, leads to vivek, vairagya, and mumukshvatam. So let me try and make it simple for all of us. So vivek means knowledge. Vivek means knowledge and desire for freedom, also in mumukshvatam. So जब हम अपनी life ऐसे purpose से live करते हैं कि we need to have moksha, which is also shreyas, and we realize that धर्म हमारा है, अर्थ हमारा है, काम हमारे efforts हैं, और हमें आगे बढ़ने के लिए we need vivek, we need buddhi.
Okay, Prachi, sorry, I managed to join with great difficulty, but anyway.
Put on your camera, please. Yes.
So I don't have camera on. Sorry. Oh dear.
I've asked if you to switch on.
Okay.
Welcome. I was missing you.
Prachi. Okay, so I just need to explain something. This, what we are doing right now, chapter 8 onwards, is actually about Tattva Bodha, which is a foundation text everybody needs if they have to study Shastra. Okay. Now, in the Vedantic context, Viveka is called discrimination between, see, any Viveka is actually not just knowledge, it is analysis or a discrimination between two things when there's a mix up. So in this case, Viveka is discrimination between what is permanent in life and what is impermanent, Nitya, Anitya. Okay.
Right.
So why do you need it? When you see the absence of what you are doing and what you actually want. So if everybody were to analyze themselves, what they actually want is to feel complete, to feel a sense of happiness or whatever it is, and they look for it with artha kama, whatever, ultimately what they will realize that anything that is temporary in life is not going to give you any permanent security or happiness or a sense of infinity or whatever you want to call it. So that is when you realize that I'm chasing after all these worldly possessions, but are they really making me happy? Because nothing can be permanent in a time-bound world. That is when you start thinking, is there something beyond which is permanent that I can hold on to? Swami Paramarthanand calls all samsara as trying to lean on a cardboard chair. You can look at the chair and say, yes, it's a very well-made copy of what a chair should look like, but you can't sit on it. You know that it's going to collapse under you. So once that realization comes in, you don't give up the world, you enjoy it for whatever it's worth. But you start looking beyond that. That is Viveka, that what is there in life, that what is Nitya, what is going to be with me forever. That is when inquiry into Vedanta comes. So this sadhana chatushtayam is the qualifications. People who start thinking like that are the ones who are interested in coming into Viveka, into Vedanta study. They get the Viveka. That is what that Viveka is that they're talking about. And Vairagyam, which is actually objectivity, is another good way to explain it, is you outgrow certain things with maturity. For example, when you were a child, a balloon was so important to you. You wanted it because as a child, that's what you wanted. And if a balloon burst, the end of your world came, you cried till you got another balloon. But as an adult, you don't want a balloon because you've outgrown it. So with Viveka, you slowly start to outgrow. You realize a lot of these things don't really matter. That is Vairagyam. And you don't have to give up anything if you feel like holding on to it. That's fine. It comes slowly. All this is a process. It does not happen.
Yeah, so in simple English, Viveka is an intelligence which can help us discriminate between good and bad.
Viveka, yes, correct. Not good and bad. What matters?
What matters? Priority wise.
Priority.
Yes.
And in this particular context, it is especially between understand what is Nitya, what is timeless, and what is a Nitya, what is time bound. It will not last. Right. That understanding you must always have. Enjoy whatever you like, but just remember it's not going to last. That's all.
Right. So thank you so much. Okay, so now we'll talk about Samadhis, Shataka, Sampati.
Sama Adi is Sama is the first. There are 6 disciplines. These are basically mental preparations for study of Vedanta. So he's calling it one, but he's got 5 others there along with that one. So Sama Adi, that means other than Sama, there are these 6, they're totally 6. So that is what we are going. These are very important. Please read. Sorry, I just.
No, that's fine. So it's not Samadhi, it's Sama-adi.
Sama-adi.
Okay, because A with that I thought Samadhi, because that's what, okay. And Shataka, Sampati, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So next qualification is a 6-fold inner discipline. This is to be accomplished through Upasana Yoga, the second sadhana, through Karma Yoga, Viveka, Vairagyam, and Mukshvatvam are obtained, and through Upasana Yoga, we have to get the qualification called Shatka Sampati or 6-fold discipline. What is the 6-fold inner discipline? First, Sama, which is mind control. 2, Dhamma, sense control. 3. Uparama.
Uparama.
Uparama. Withdrawal of the capacity to withdraw. 4. Titiksha. Forbearance. 5. Shraddha. Faith in the scriptures and the Guru. 6. Samadhanam.
Yes.
Concentration.
Actually, I had sent you the link to the other class we're having, na Kaivalya. So because there are a lot of beginners, this is exactly what she was doing. I think I even sent you a recorded class, you know.
Yes,
So there she is also working on talking about what she's explaining it in great detail, the teacher, what Samadhama is, you know. So whenever you get a chance, listen to that class, it will help. Yeah, will do.
Sama means mind control. Mind control is the capacity to regulate and direct our mental energy, which includes all our powers, Ichha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, and Kriya Shakti. We have the power to regulate them, redirect them so that there is no wastage of energy. It is like damming a river and channeling the water. Unless water is channeled, floods cause havoc in one place while there is untold suffering due to drought in another place. Both lead to loss. Both types of destruction are to be avoided. In the same manner, I have to channelize my mental energy. Mind control, therefore, does not mean suppression. Psychologists say that suppression is dangerous. By control, we mean regulation, channeling, directing the thoughts. It is similar to a driver controlling the steering of a car, directing the car through the road.
So can I just say something? I had made some notes from my class of the other class. So I will just read out as you go along. So with Sama, what she said was, it refers, okay, these are short notes, they're not the comprehensive notes, refers to the sixfold wealth. She called it wealth of the mind because you're controlling, managing your mind. Sama, mastery over unhealthy thinking patterns, to grow from reactions to proper action, processing your reactions and moving from impulsive to deliberate thinking. This is a value to manage stress in the mind, to not internalize anything. It helps to bring the knowledge to your mind when you need it the most, because you may have all the knowledge, but when you need it, it just doesn't come to you and you behave in a reactive, impulsive manner. Like what happened on that battlefield in Mahabharata to Karna, I think it was. The power of emotions, your likes and dislikes, can be managed if you cultivate Sama. Sama means alert living with objectivity. And what you need to do that, according to Lord Krishna, it is practice and practice. That's the only thing that slowly you will get Sama. So practice is Abhyasa, and you have to just keep at it. And the second thing you have to have is Vairagya, which is objectivity. Then they talk of something called Pratipaksha Bhavana, opposition thinking. It's a mental training, which is that when something happens and you get into a negative spiral of thoughts, don't entertain those thoughts. Thoughts come, you cannot help thoughts. Those are involuntary, they will come. You have no control. You know, it's not deliberate, certain thoughts will come. At that time, do not entertain them, as they say. Do not say, come sit down and have a cup of tea with me. If they're not productive, think of something else. Totally turn your mind away, and those kind of negative thoughts will stop coming, because how long can they keep coming if you're not going to entertain them? So that is what is Pratipaksha Bhavana. So these are all methods.
Is that also Kriya Shakti? But even in Kriya, your thoughts are coming, but you don't expand them.
Yeah. No, I don't know about Kriya Shakti too much, so I can't really talk about that. So this is basically a mental training. Understand that the problem is within. Having, oh yeah, now see my own handwriting. Okay, so they're talking about the gunas come into play when it comes to thinking. So if you are happy when others are happy and they have reason to be happy, that means you're Sattva Guna Pradhan. If you are happy when others are unhappy, that means you're Tamasic. And you're unhappy when others are happy, that is Rajasic. So, I mean, that's just an aside. But basically, this is what she said about Sama. And these are my briefer notes. I haven't listened to the class again to make them comprehensive. Basically, it is to manage your thinking patterns. Don't get into negative thinking or wrong thinking of any kind.
And don't expand something. If something comes, it'll come, but don't expand it.
Not at all. Yeah.
And turn your mind from that to something else, which just makes you happy.
Yeah.
Thank you. So second is Dhamma, sense control. Now, sense control means directing the sense organs in the chosen field. I decide what are the things to be contacted. Let us remember Gandhiji's 3 monkeys here. See only what is proper, hear only what is proper, and speak only what is proper. This does not indicate suppression. On the other hand, it indicates direction. For example, there are so many channels in TV. I should know what I should see and what I should avoid. Thus, sense control is regulation of sense organs.
So actually, what she said was, it is only not just, see, we will read about the sense organs because we are getting into Tattva Bodha. There are also organs of action. Sense organs are organs of perception, then there are organs of action. All these need to be managed. And all these operate because they are directed by our likes and dislikes. The usual suspects are raga dveshas, as they say, you know. So because of likes and dislikes, we will behave in certain ways. Our sense organs also react to certain things based on our own, deep inside, we have our own likes and dislikes. So you have to manage your organs of action, not suppression of the senses. When you suppress something, it is out of fear or helplessness. Whereas when you manage, it is with understanding of the pros and cons in any situation. You have to see that value for yourself. You discipline yourself, that is Dhamma, and then you can guide all your organs, sense, perceptions, and your organs in the right direction. There should be a filtration system for everything that arises in the mind. Those are the little points I made from her talk on Dhamma.
Third is Uparama, withdrawal. The third one is Uparama or withdrawal, not being too much of an extrovert. Extrovertedness is a very big obstacle because an extrovert will not find time for any higher pursuits of life. He will have time for Artha Kama only. Dharma, Moksha will not mean anything to him. Therefore, an extrovert person may enjoy life. Perhaps he can grow in life. But he cannot grow in life. Even if his physical body withdraws, his mind does not withdraw. The success of life is not enjoyment, it is in growth. This withdrawal, however, is not total. If I totally withdraw and go to a cave and sit, I will become insane. This withdrawal is such that I have time for the pursuit of Upasana Yoga and Jnana Yoga. Therefore, withdrawal must be only physical, but also sensory.
Not only.
Yeah, not only
Not
physical,
only.
but also sensory and mentally. When you're listening to Vedanta, you are supposed to have, you're not supposed to have any thought of your family, your business, your future plans. The capacity to physically, sensorially, and mentally withdraw is called Uparama.
Uparama. Yeah. Basically, it boils down to focusing, you know, don't be distracted. That is what they're trying to say. And also, you know, it's never talking of giving up the world or something, because you're going to carry the world in your head. It's only having a little self-discipline in terms of a little withdrawal. That's all it's talking about. Yeah.
Right. Now, the fourth is Titiksha, forbearance. Titiksha means the physical and mental capacity to experience the pairs of opposites without seriously getting affected. It is a toughness to withstand the ups and downs of life. All the austerities like fasting, pilgrimages, etc., are to make the person tough. Otherwise, when the Lord is all pervading, why would our forefathers build temples in inaccessible places like Badrinath, Kedarnath, and so on? After all, if God is everywhere, you can invoke God in your own house. The idea behind building such temples is that as you walk and eat all types of food and sleep anywhere under the sun or rain, your body and mind become tougher and tougher. This is required for any success. As they say, when the going gets tough, the tough gets going. Living in an air-conditioned room will not make the body tough. Hence, vratam and tapas are advised. So, vrat and tap is required. This will help in withdrawal from other activities also. Very beautiful. You want to add something?
No, nothing really. We haven't done my other class. We haven't gone beyond Uparama. We just did 3 values. 3 qualifications the other day.
So we'll read it, and then as and when you get to know, we'll expand more.
Yeah.
Now we'll talk about the 5th, which is Shraddha, faith. Faith is a trust in the validity of the scriptural teachings. We develop faith in anything by worshipping it. Faith is developed through worship, even if it is mechanically done. I can worship something only if I have faith in its glory. Unfortunately, faith can be developed only if I worship. Here is a problem of mutual dependence. We try to find a solution by mechanically worshipping, even if we don't have faith. This is why we are asking to worship in childhood itself before we learn to question things. Later, after growing up, questions start. A child learns to worship God, the scriptures, and the Mahatmas, noble souls, without undue questioning. Actually, worship is twofold. Mental worship, which is a reverential attitude, and the other is physical worship like Namaskaram. A child cannot do mental worship, therefore, introduce the physical worship in childhood itself, and the chances are, as a child grows, it will develop faith in God, the scriptures, and the Mahatmas. However, there is no guarantee. After the child grows up, the worship may be dropped. We can only pray that the child develops faith. If one nourishes faith during childhood, later it will be reinforced. Until then, it is open-mindedness alone. Therefore, develop faith by worship of the 3, God, scriptures, and the Mahatma. So we are actually inculcating values. Faith is inculcating values, hoping that they will in future culminate into something deeper. Otherwise, at least teach them. Sanskar de do. That's your faith.
Correct.
Right. Now we talk about concentration, samadhanam. By concentration, we mean both short-term and long-term focusing. By short-term focusing, we mean freedom from distraction. When I listen to scriptures, I should be able to keep my mind in that subject without distraction. For different people, the duration of concentration is different. A child will play with a toy for a minute and then throw it away. It needs a change very frequently. Some people cannot watch one show on TV for 2 minutes. They keep changing the channels. It is called channel surfing. At least for an hour, I should be able to focus on any field. The second thing is long-term focusing. In and through my various pursuits, I should not lose sight of the ultimate goal of moksha, which should be at the back of my mind. This is like a long train journey. The immediate goal is the next station. Each station I may get down, but whatever I do at each station, in and through all of them, I remember it as intermediary station. I have to reach my destination. I do not lose sight of it. Similarly, I may raise a family, earn money, build houses, travel abroad, etc. None of them is the final goal of my life. The success depends on whether I have achieved the real thing. In other words, I should die with total fulfillment without lacking anything as a
Purna.
Purna
Purna.
Purusha. According to the scriptures, a person who discovers fullness in life in himself because before dying is a true Brahman. A person who does not discover that fulfillment is an unfortunate person who has to be pitied because he has wasted his wonderful life. And therefore, constantly I should remember Mahata Punyapana Krityam Kayanashutvam Kayanasvatvaya. No, sorry.
Whatever. I even clear of that.
Vaya. You have brought this body bought from the Lord by paying a lot punyam as cash. Param dukhodhar gantum. It's for the crossing the oceans of mortality. In other words, to cross the ocean of samsara, you are given this wonderful boat. Before the boat disintegrates, cross the ocean, Tara Yavana Vidyate. This goal must be at the back of my mind. This is also known as Samadhanam. All types of meditations, japa, satsang, are meant for this long-term concentration and short-term concentration alone. Thus, the six-fold discipline has to be acquired by following the necessary sadhanas. The main sadhana being Upasana Yoga. One who has acquired these four qualifications is called an Adhikari. He is the one who has sadhana chatursyam.
Yeah. Okay, you need to know that it does not have to be absolute. Even if you have it in relative measure, these qualifications, it's good enough. None of us can be 100% having Viveka or Vairagya or all the six Samadhi, all those qualifications. But even if you cultivate them and get them in a relative measure, that is okay. It's part of your journey. The other thing I wanted to say here is that according to the Shastra, there are, I don't know, they talk in Hindi about some 84 lakh yoni. I don't know what it is, but
84, yeah, 84 lakh yoniyan ke baad human body.
no. But what they say is that you can be born in any life form. People have this mistaken impression that you get, once you got human birth, you'll get another human birth and another. No, you could be born as anything. You could be a cat in the next life. There is no guarantee. It is a lot of karma in your, when we do karma, you'll read about the Sanchita karma, which is your storehouse of all the karmas for anadi lives that you've had. When there's a lot of punya which is ready to manifest or fructify, that is when you get a human birth. And it is not guaranteed every life. So when you get the human birth, don't waste it away.
Yeah.
Use it. The other thing Lord Krishna has said interestingly in the Bhagavad Gita that we all hold on to dearly is, he says, if you come to me, I think it's in chapter 7, if I'm not wrong. He says, if you come to the teaching, he says, I will guarantee you a birth, basically a human birth, in any two conditions. One being that you will be born into a family of great scholars of great values. So you can pick up the thread and study further. And the other birth he talks about is a well-to-do family of karma yogis. So you don't have to sit and worry about working for a living, and you will have the opportunity to pick up the thread and continue your journey. Because suppose you don't get moksha in one life, you haven't got that much jnanam. So he says, but once you have come to the study of Shastra, he guarantees a human birth. So we just hope that that's what's going to happen to all of us.
Yeah.
Now, what I wanted to say was that from next week, we are going to get into what are the prakriyas, which are a bit hardcore. So I just thought I'll give you a very small little introduction. So, I mean, this is jumping way ahead, but I'll just try and explain it as simply as I can. So they say nothing is ever created, you know. In fact, even the theory of physics, I think, says no matter cannot be created or destroyed. So what happens is all of creation is manifest to unmanifest to manifest to unmanifest. It's cyclic.
Right.
So what we call creation is only manifestation from the unmanifest to the manifest. Okay.
Right.
And what we call pralaya or dissolution is the manifest going into the unmanifest. There's this cycle of yugas that keeps happening. Now, what happens is that when creation starts, the 5 Panch Mahabhutas, they come as tanmatras, as subtle elements to begin with.
Okay.
The first element that comes is space. Okay. Then out of space comes Vayu, which is air. I don't know what would you call Vayu anyway. Then comes fire, Agni. That's the first element that has a form, because space is all pervading. You cannot see it. Air you can feel because you can't see it, but you can feel it. Okay.
Right.
Fire. And then out of fire comes water, which has taste also. And out of water, then the last element is earth. So these come first in subtle form. And then there's a process of grossification whereby they become grossified, and then the prapancha, let's say the creation happens. Okay. So I just wanted to give that little background. So when they talk of stula, that is the gross form. When they talk of sukshma, that is the subtle form.
Subtle form.
And when they talk of karana, that is the causal form, which is the unmanifest bundle of potentials which are waiting to manifest. So I just thought I'll give that little background, because when we get into actually, I mean, I don't know if this will cover it, but when you talk about the organs of action and all, in the Sukshma Shariram, they are made out of the subtle aspects of the 5 elements. But in the gross body, they are made out of the gross elements. So that's the whole process. But just to explain how the 5 elements come to being.
Looking forward to learning that. Yeah, more.
Yeah. But I don't know what happened today. I had such a hard time. I don't know. It kept asking me all kinds of things. Finally, I managed to get on.
I'm so glad you did, because your presence is so important for all of us. Thank you.
Just give little clarification. I'll try and send you, you see, just, sorry, 2 minutes more. You won't believe it. We are actually doing an Upanishad, but because there are a lot of newcomers, she's trying to give a background. So the first word of Kaivalya is this word atha. Atha means therefore or thereafter. This sage Ashvalayana goes. Now, she is explaining that atha in detail, because what it means is that he has adhikaritvam. He's qualified to receive the knowledge. So in that context, with that one word, we've taken 3 classes where she's covering all these sadhanas. So that's what we are doing. We haven't even started the Upanishad yet. So,
Thank you so much, Debra, for sharing your life. Thank you so much.
bye-bye.